Hey, what it do, guys? Bless up. It's gonna be a really short video. I kind of want to hit on something. I always talk about these things, but I want to hit on this area again. I was on social media, and sometimes when you're on social media, you know how one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing. Especially on Twitter, if you guys are on there, you know how that can. You can click on something, you didn't get on something, you get on something else. But there was this post that said, um, I guess this person has a popular social media handle. It said, "I want to go and break glass," and a lot of the comments said, "I'm so stressed out. I'm so tense. I'm so frustrated." And if you've been on Twitter, which I don't follow a lot of people who talk like this, but there is a type of, I don't know if you call it a spirit or what, but where people are like very like, chatty Cathy, like going back and forth with, I don't know who. I don't know if they just have enemies, if it's quoting rap lyrics or what, but it's just constant back and forth as if they're agitated. And then it hit me. I said, you know what? The way we're raising our daughters up, and not just our daughters, the way, when I say our daughters, I'm talking about society. The way we're raising our young women up, we're inviting them into a depressive, manic state. From really, well, it's been like this for probably at least 40 or 50 years, but within the past 20 years, 15 years, and of course going higher, higher, more and more, you've seen this kind of spirit in the land where all we do for our women or our daughters or whatever case may be is, excuse me, we push them into being what we want them to be. And this is really in America and in the West, period. And it's kind of spreading it all over. But whether you're African American community, whether it's the Caucasian community, really in a lot of communities, but it's a pushing women into what I would call self, pushing them into careerism, pushing them into school. I mean, at the rate where I've always said for the past 10 years, I was one of the only first people I've heard say this. If we're not pushing our boys in school either on par with the women or more than the women, we're creating an imbalance. And the imbalance comes out on the back end as a negative, in a way. But I said, why are the women so depressed? Why are they so frustrated? And I say this because we're making them, we're molding them in bitterness, in hurt, in anger, in our own as parents, divorces and hatreds and attempts of not finding intimacy and love and in our own feelings and emotions of being abused maybe or witnessing tough things. We have reshaped and remolded them to be hurt, and they really don't know how to handle it. Now, and I've always when I said, why do young women, I'm saying young, 24, 25, 28, they're tatting up their bodies, they're hurting, and they're in love with money, and you get to a point where you say there's been an imbalance in a broken system. And a lot of it does stem from this feminist type of ideology, which told women being a wife, being a mother, being a person who serves in the community and has a love for Christ and a love for the homeless and a love for the less fortunate, that's no longer in. You need to worry about your makeup, worry about your hair all the time, worry about your outfits all the time, worry about how you look, worry about your body all the time, worry. And so much of the worry has become superficial to where instead of worrying about how to help your home, how to serve your community, how to serve your church, how to serve maybe your family in a way, it's all been redirected into serving, self-serving. And I think the Apostle Paul said, lovers of self. It's all become lovers of self. And it's spiritual because if it's one thing Satan hates more than anything, it's procreation, and it's the ability to form a healthy balance with a man and a woman. And not just a man and a woman, grandparents, like God, when God creates something, it's a balance. It's men and it's women. It's the moon and it's the sun. It's the night and it's the day. He creates balance. Whenever something is out of balance, you know that God is not in that because he's not a God that is out of balance. So, and I went on more on to get back to Twitter thing, and I started to see more of the women talk about it. They could only find love, and I said that's the issue. There is a lack of love, a lack of closeness, and a lack of intimacy. There's other cultures that they pride themselves on bringing food to their neighbors. Now that's something that the African American community, and maybe even in America, period, done 40 or 50, 60 years ago. When you went over a person's house, you brought a gift. But now that is so foreign to where it's no longer really about fellowship, love, picking up the phone and calling someone. It's been turned into the self, and you get more pleasure. I think they had a study. You get more dopamine release when you're helping someone than you do when you have a mirror looking at yourself, or you're constantly frustrated with certain things and how it looks. And if you notice, I think Paul said something that's so elegant in Timothy, and it's going to be a short video, but I want to hit on this. In 1 Timothy 4, he said, 1 Timothy 4 and 3, he said, they forbid people to marry. They forbid people to marry. And of course, he went on saying even to abstain from food. But I want to hit on forbid people to marry. I think if you grew up in the past 20 years, excuse me, and if a young woman says she desires a relationship and a family, she was chastised as if what she wants is not natural. She was told, go get your education. Don't worry about boys. Don't worry about men. Don't worry about what is natural. Now, she wasn't told that part, but that's what it means. Don't worry about your biological clock. And I don't mean that to discourage any women. I'm saying, really, that's a mental thing. Don't worry about your emotional state, should I say, but more so focus on what we say you should do. That ideology was the feminist movement. We were talking about some of these people who funded it. When you get into the Rockefellers and some of those names, the Kissingers of the world, who knew that when you educate a woman, the more you educate a woman, the less she will have children. That's why in some of the third world countries, or so-called third world countries, some of the places in the continent of Africa, they said we got to educate the women. Why? Because we want them to have less children. That's the depopulation plan. We want them not to populate. Why? Because that's Satan attack. Why? God said be fruitful and multiply. That's also why the cost of living is rising. Anything that we can do to make women infertile, to make women not marry, to make marriage seem despicable. They create a spirit of hostility, spirit of bitterness, even with the men. When you crush your man over little things, whether big or little, you're creating a spirit of hatred. You're putting it out and you're getting it back in. If a mother chastises and crushes her son and tells him how no good his father is, she's crushing him and creating a cycle. If a mother tells her daughter how bad her father is, she's crushing him. There's a constant spirit of crushing going on, and the next generation suffers more and more until a generation stops and says, hey, I'm looking around in wisdom. Something is not right. Not just looking and saying, I'm willing to do something different to get a result. I don't want to be like my dad if he was negative and crushed my mom. I don't want to be like my mom or my aunt or my grandmother if she hated men or hated the potential of a relationship. It's hard to foster love and intimacy when you grew up seeing things that said don't even go near that. You better hate that. So I thought it was very fascinating that Paul said they forbid people to marry. And then I love how he said in verse 5, speaking to the widows, about the widows, but I'm going to end with this. He said, No widow may be put on a list of widows unless she is over 60, has been faithful with her husband. Well, listen to this. And is well known for her deeds. How many, what are, like we encourage the women, don't marry, don't get in a relationship, or we encourage them, young ladies, and men for that matter, be known for doing good deeds in the community. Be known for bringing up your children. Be known for showing hospitality. Be known for washing the feet of the Lord's people and helping those in trouble and devoting herself to good deeds. The reason that's so powerful, we're going to have to, in these days ahead, some people say the last days and there's so much corrupt stuff happening, but we're going to have to dig deep within ourselves and say, have we been tricked by feminist agendas? Have we been tricked by the evil agendas, men and women? Have we been burdened down financially, so stressed out money-wise, that we're no longer looking at things with the lens of God? If Satan can make you hate marriage or hate family or hate, who you're supposed to be, then you've given him access to win the game for you, short term at least. There's a time where you have to think critically, you have to not get in your feelings, you have to forgive often, and you have to really love. Peter said, and I'll end with this, love deeply. Love covers a multitude of wrongs. Love covers a multitude of sins. Let's not go into stubbornness. Let's not be in love with the self to the point where we're not allowing the love of God to flow. Don't become bitter. Don't become hard. Don't do those things. Let's be anti this wicked world. And let's keep the Most High God first. Peace.